Hey everybody, welcome to the Power of Connection broadcast. My name is Bobby Umar, and I'm here with Ginger Johnson, another fellow connection enthusiast.
Yes.
I love it, so I'm delighted to have you here with me today, Ginger. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bobby, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Truly, it's not just some empty words, it's real.
Oh, that's sweet. I appreciate that. All right, so those who are joining us, we're going to talk about connecting in crazy times. We're in a crazy times right now. So, what are some tactics and strategies for you to leverage this crazy time and connect right now? That's what we're going to get into. And so,
Yeah.
She's a human connection expert. I'm a connection guru. I'm going to say guru. I want to say guru. Connection. I often want to say Captain Connection.
I'm going to send you a hat. Captain.
Yeah, Captain Connection. And so we are here to for the Power of Connection broadcast, and the hashtag Power of Connection broadcast. So the broadcast is really about helping people connect better professionally and connect with leaders. And I talk about things like entrepreneurship, leadership, personal branding, motivation, public speaking, things like storytelling, things like that. And ultimately, I'm here every Monday, Wednesdays at 1:30 p.m. Although that's going to change once the summer schedule hits my kids. I'm going to have to change kind of the timing. It's probably going to be earlier in the morning. But that's just a heads up for people who are, wondering what I'm going to do in the next couple of weeks. So it is going to shift. And the other thing about this broadcast, we want people to be involved. We want them to, connection, right? We want to connect with you. So if you're listening, and I see some of you there, this is a chance for you to comment below and let us know where you're from: South America, North America, Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe. Let me know. And the second thing you can do is you can actually comment on stuff. Comment on my beard. Comment on her glasses. Comment on whatever. Yeah. Comment on I trimmed here and here. So comment on stuff and ask us questions about connection, because you're probably struggling with connection. You're probably overwhelmed. You're probably dealing with uncertainty. You're probably working with a team remotely. The connection is going to be a huge piece of that. So we want you to tell us where you're from, ask questions, and engage us, because you've got two experts in the room, and we want to help you. So before we get into the deep dive of Connection in Crazy Times, I just want to hear about your story. So why don't you share with us and everybody who's watching, Ginger, a bit about kind of your story of who you are and how you came to be where you are today.
Wow.
Connect us to your story.
Sure. So when I was a little girl, solidly middle class in the middle of Midwestern America, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I don't exactly know where that came from. We had dogs, and I was interested, and I would always groom them and love them up and so forth. And somewhere along the way, it shifted, probably in my upper middle school and into high school years. And then I wanted to become a teacher. I do not know where that came from, Bobby. Okay. I don't know what possessed me. And I went off to college and got my elementary education degree and art degree and proceeded to teach and so forth. And I stayed in that teaching profession for 5 years. Well, fast forward to a couple of years ago, my dad and I are having a conversation, and somehow that era of my life came up, and he said, well, no. He said, when you were in high school, you were really set on becoming a teacher. And I tried to suggest thinking about some other things. And he wasn't suggesting to say that no, teaching's bad. Teaching is an amazing profession. He was suggesting to help me think about something else. So he too had no idea where the teaching idea came from. And turns out I was in the teaching profession for 5 to 7 years. And then I got out. And sadly, there's a lot of people like you and me, Bobby, who do that. And the great thing about that is that, first of all, education is always worth it. Doesn't matter. You can apply whatever you learn. As soon as you learn, you're applying it. So it doesn't matter what the knowledge proper is. It matters what dots you connect to use that experience and that information. I wish I could go back to that moment, Bobby, and listen to my dad, because I, as an adult, have thought, oh, well, engineering fascinates me because I love building things and knowing how they're built. Like, oh, I don't remember that. Wouldn't have that been interesting if I would have done this, or if I would have done this? So the first piece of juice I want to give today is, if you play the what if game with yourself, make sure it's a positive what if, that it's an aspirational, connecting future dots. We can't change what's in the rear view mirror. That's why we're looking into the rear, but we can look out the windshield and say, oh, okay, so I see that. and I'm going there. And so that's a little bit about some of my trajectory along the way, from the time of deciding to be a teacher to actually teaching, having my own classroom. I love those kids. Any kids who were in my middle school rooms, I would love to reconnect, because it was such a powerful and impressionable time for me in my early 20s, mid 20s. And I've done a whole bunch of things along the way, Bobby, just like you have. Life is fascinating. And when I chose connection and human connection to really focus on it, I realized that I had always been interested in it. And it had manifested differently. Hardware store. I know you've watched my TED Talk. I know you're a 3-4 time TEDx speaker too, but I talked about that in mine. 5? Okay. High five. Bread store, firefighter, teacher, all kinds of different things. And so I look at that and I think, oh, education has always been my golden thread. So the beauty of that degree is it kickstarted me into that pursuit, that you can change the world, you can change your life, you can change other lives with education. That's why it's always important. It always matters. It's not just a piece of paper, and it's not just showing up for class, whether it's virtual or in person. It's the true connection to who you are and who you want to become.
Can I interrupt for a second to find out, like, how early in your life did you realize that you had a connection ability? Why are you thinking about that? I'll just share mine. Okay, so
yeah.
I grew up with my cousins, and with a lot of cousins, family, and friends. And one of the things I realized is that I was always a guy who created clubs, right?
Okay.
And I remember one of the first clubs I created called Rex, RHEKS, which was Rehan, Hada, Adnan, Kashan, and Saket, my cousins. And we created a club. And what was interesting was I not only created the club, but I made myself vice president, not president, because I wanted my cousin to be the leader of it. And but I created the club itself, and so I knew then that I was kind of a connector, and that was like when I was maybe 10 years old. But what about you?
That's a great question. I was a pretty quiet kid. I wasn't shy, but I wasn't the wah that I am now.
You are now. Yeah, you are now for sure.
I've practiced and earned that. So another piece of juice is, if you want to learn how to connect, you can. It's up to you. When did I think of it? I've never thought about this question, Bobby. This is a really good question. I probably started to come into my own in college as a connector, even though it was way down below the surface of connecting the dots. That's often the first step. You start thinking about two things, two people, two places, two experiences, two whatever. Usually there are similar two things at first, until you realize that dots go in every which way. It's like the sticky cobweb that's not one dimensional in the corner that you see, like, how does the spider navigate that? The spider has connected everything. Spiders are brilliant. And so I started connecting things in college. I really started coming into my own. For the first time, I was me. I wasn't my sister's sister. I wasn't my parents' daughter. I was Ginger. And the whole world opened up. And again, I had a great upbringing. I'm really grateful for that. I had very good relationships with my parents and my sister at that time. And I simply wanted to be me. I didn't know that. But then I started connecting with me. And then you've got to keep this in mind. Here's a piece of juice. You've got to connect with yourself first. You've got to know your why. We hear this. This is not a pithy saying. Listen to me when I'm talking like this. If you know your purpose and your vision and your mission, then that is the very first, that's the nucleus to be able to connect the other dots. That's the very first dot that you have. You got to know yourself. And then you can start experimenting and going out. College is a great place to do that. And that's when I probably could trace it to.
Okay. And for those who are listening to us, again, I want to create some more engagement here. Connection. Tell us in the comments if you can, whether you are a connector or how you knew you were a connector. And if you're not, maybe tell us what your biggest struggle is in terms of connecting with people. I'd love to hear from that.
I'd love to know, Bobby, how people define themselves as a connector, or what is a connector, because there's I use the C word, not the N word. And I think you and I have talked about that. I use the connection word and connector.
Networking.
I don't use the networking word. If you want to use it, I'm not going to judge you. You go right ahead. What we've done, though, is we've kind of bastardized what that word means. Right. Oh, I'm going to network. Like, well, wait a minute. Network is a noun. You can't go do a noun, but you can connect. And so you can build a network, fine. Now I'm a word nerd, so I choose to put my stake in the ground and say, look, we talk about connecting, not networking. They're very different. One is tips of the waves, one is way underneath the surface. And so I'd love to know how they define themselves as a connector, as a networker, what the difference they might see if they don't see a difference. So yeah, bring it on. Let's hear some chat.
That's a good question. I mean, I think for me, I would define connector as someone who is either naturally or has learned the skills to quickly find common ground with somebody, no matter who they are, or a way to bridge people together under other conversation or some sort of cause, or things like that. So something for me I've always been able to do is be able to connect with people and find that commonality that, like, so I was like, oh, you like playing chess? Sure, I'm a chess player. What do you think about, Garry Kasparov back in the day? And I'll next thing you know, we're talking about that stuff and we're having a really good conversation. And then next thing you know, an hour goes by. So that's something you can be, it could be part of your talent or your gift as a young person, or something you can learn to do. So that's how I define it. I don't know how other people define it.
Sure. I'm saying. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I caution people in using the word talent because that can be really pressure laden. Like when we think back to our high school days, or even Bobby, I know you have kids in school still. And if the second we get labeled with something, there's pressure, and it doesn't matter what the label is. I think we need to be really cautious with saying, oh, they're talented, because then what happens in their head is they're like, oh, that's what I need to be doing, and that's what I need to be excellent at, and I can't do something else. So I'm reading a lot of books about those kinds of labels and so forth lately.
Well, I agree with you. I'm not. One of the things I learn with kids is, it's not to label them. Like, don't say you're a picky eater. Oh, you're the funny one. I was using more like, aptitude, skills,
right? So, I think
like that.
Right.
So,
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
We're
here to helpfully educate. Like, think of aptitude. Aptitude is something you can gain, you can earn, you can learn,
and build on.
Right, exactly. Some people might be more naturally inclined. You could say that. I also think, well, we're all capable. There's a woman close to a couple hours away from me. Her name is Sherry. Big shout out for Sherry. She's a terrific graphic designer and web designer. And she came to my live event last November, the Art of Connecting Summit. And so she is a self-described introvert, and she kind of unloaded on me in a really good way, because she signed up and I asked her, would you tell me why you've chosen to come so I can learn a little bit more about you? She wrote me this big long paragraph. She said, well, this isn't normally my jam. I normally stay away from networking things and these things where there's a lot of people in the room. Okay, market research going on, pay attention. Who am I serving? What do they need to know? How are they feeling? And we've since kicked off a fun relationship. But she's very active on Twitter, for example. And so we'll go back and forth. And what I know she took away from thinking about connection differently than networking was that she didn't want the ick. She didn't want the, oh, I get it. I don't want to go in the room. You start to curl up like, oh, I don't want to have to do this. Okay, great. Sherry, just meet one person at a time. And there's so many ways we can do it. So true to the title of our cast today here, Bobby, like, how do we connect in these crazy times? Well, here's the deal. We've just compressed time, people. We haven't, this could have still happened. It's very likely it would have, based on historical knowledge and information. But what has happened is that the scale of ramp up has like, nope, you get 50 feet instead of 5,000. So I love that example of Sherry. She was self-described introvert. She still is. She's like, this is what my happy place is. This is what makes me sound grounded and functional and productive and everything. And oh, so that's good for me as a connector, because I still need my quiet time. I don't vert status identify. I don't see a need for it, because again, it's an intention. And if you want to go out and meet people, if you want to connect with people, you will find a way to do it. Here's an example. Say you broke your leg, Bobby, and you were over on my side of the continent. And so your family is quite a ways away from you, and you literally are in the next town. You call me and say, Ginger, I need some help. I'm going to find a way to do that. That's skills based. I know I can figure this out. I know I can help you. If I know I want to walk into a room or connect with somebody on LinkedIn or wherever it is, I know I can do it because it's skills. I've already learned this. All we need to figure out then is execution. It's really not that hard based on the skills we have.
So then let's go right into the actual conversation of the title, which is, connecting during crazy times. So these are crazy times. And you're a connector, I'm a connector too. We love to connect with people.
We're both crazy.
how have you initially kind of dealt with these crazy times in terms of your own personal connection with things?
Yeah, good question, Bobby. So, as a professional speaker, my livelihood changed significantly, and I let myself feel the feel, so to speak. I think it's really important. Even though I still have a lot of work in figuring out how to continue to help myself grow that way, I still know that I need to acknowledge that. That's really important. I know you know what I'm talking about. Put something in the chat if you know what we're talking about here. And so I knew I needed to shift. I didn't know how or where or, all the mechanical things, all the moving parts were going to be. I just knew I needed to. So I recognized that as a connector, I need to stay in connection. And the cool thing is that, just like you, Bobby, we're staying in touch. If you're going to be a connector, if you're really going to commit yourself to this mindset and activity of being a connector, you do this regularly. You're not the CEO who shows up in somebody's email box because COVID hit and it's the only time anybody has ever freaking heard of you or from you. Like, I just find that while I appreciate what might be underneath there, I find it very, very surface level. It's like, oh, we're here for you. Wait a minute, you've never been there for me. So one of the tactics I would say is be there for people on a regular basis, regardless. Put it in your calendar, however you schedule, bundle, make phone calls. A couple of my favorite tactics, Bobby, because they're effective in staying connected, being connecting, helping people know that they are of worth, of value, which is what connection is. It's not about you, it's about them. And by the way, when it's the right them, it is fulfilling and gratitudinous and business happens, life happens, all those things. So we have to come at it from a service heart, and I know you know what I'm talking about. Sure. So a couple of my go-to methods right now and forever. First of all, make a lot more phone calls than screen time, because the screen fatigue, we all know screen fatigue is real. And so make the phone more of your buddy. In fact, one micro is a walk and talk. Schedule an appointment with someone like, yeah, let's have a walk and talk instead of sitting or even standing. Let's move your body. We know exercise and movement is proven to keep our hormones up, to keep our attitude up, to help with our mental.
I love those.
Yeah. So do more phone, do some walk and talks. Another tactic I absolutely love and teaching and getting is the video message. So get your phone and make a short video message. I do this live in my workshops, whether they're virtual or in person. And people put up like, well, I don't look good. I'm like, it's not about you. And by the way, you look great, because what you look is you're reminding somebody they're being thought of. You're reminding them that they still matter. I think of my sister, who I adore, and she lives alone, and her 18-year-old dog recently died. And so this has been extra challenging for her. So anybody, especially in a solo zone, or somebody who feels very isolated, regardless of how many people are running around.
Right.
Video message. It's short and sweet. Let me do one right now, if I may.
Sure.
What you do is you get your phone and you put it on your camera. You look at yourself and you're like, damn, I look good. And then you record. And let's see, who should I send this to? I'm going to send this to my friend Bobby. Hey, Bobby, thinking of you today. Wondering what's one project you're working on right now that I might be able to help support. I know you're doing some great work in the education space. And so let me know. Hope your family is well. Let's set up a time to talk soon, and take good care. Bye.
And I love that because, it's rare, right? I mean, people who send video messages are far rarer than those who send voice messages, which is even which is less rare than those who just send text messages. So, it's a great way to set yourself apart, which is funny because it's actually the best way to create connection.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
But let me add one thing, which is an observation, which is, it's funny throughout the entire COVID situation that people are having Zoom or screen fatigue with video calls, because, I'd never heard of, before this all happened, that there was in-person fatigue. Oh, because no matter what they say, sales call, networking, any sort of presentation that you're doing, ideally you want it to be live and in person. That's what you want, because that is the best way to create that connection, to get the best results, to get the best transactions. And I never heard anyone saying, except for the introverts, like, well, I'm really tired of live events, but I know the importance of going to them. But no one ever talked about live in-person fatigue. Yet with Zoom, people are saying that. And I'm just curious why that is. Is it a technology thing? Did people have phone fatigue when phones first came around? I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm putting it out there as a devil's advocate, because I understand there's fatigue. I understand. Is it more of an introversion thing? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bobby. That's true. I flash back to, say, some conferences, and you can probably picture some too, whether you're speaking or you're a guest, and like, okay, so what did we do to keep ourselves in the game? Like, how did we do that? So for conference organizers, the world-class conference organizers, I think Terry Carden and Michelle Neville-Peak and a whole bunch of the fabulous people in that profession, like, they're world-class because they know when we need breaks. They're world-class because they know that we can't just keep going at this really high level. We will literally, like, our adrenal system will like, hey, over here, knock it off. For the screens, I wonder if, I'm not the scientist in the room on this, I'm like the connecting professor. There is some actual data, as I think you know, Bobby, on the light and the stimulation in our brain. But that's a fantastic conversation. Like, why did we never say, oh no, 3 days is way too long, I'm going to be fatigued, as opposed to, oh, 3 hours, that's way too long, I'm going to be fatigued. I think they're apples to jalapenos. So we still are hungry for the connection, but how we're executing them is different. And so we do need to think about, how do we take care of ourselves? I encourage people, look at your schedule. I do this regularly, Bobby. Look at your schedule on total classic paper. Look at your schedule, cancel half of your appointments.
That is a lot. Paper.
Cancel half your appointments, because first of all, you need.
Did you say cancel half the appointments?
Yeah.
Just scratch them off the list.
Get serious about which ones really move your needle. That made you uncomfortable. Don't scratch me. But
LinkedIn Local with Ginger Johnson.
Where are you with it? And I got to tell you a story here, because about 6 or 8 months ago, I started experiencing screen fatigue. It wasn't called that yet because we weren't in this. Yeah. What I was doing is, on my follow-up Fridays, I was stacking it high, watching it fly. So I was doing back to back to back to back to back screen times, and I was just beat. I'm like, I got to change this. So what I'm encouraging people, what I'm teaching to is, look, you've probably overscheduled yourself, just like we all do. That's okay, and acknowledge it, and then disconnect or move some of them. And you don't want to do that a lot, but if you've got a whole bunch in front of you and you're feeling like, I don't have any time for myself, which I do this to myself once in a while. I'm preaching what I'm teaching. I'm doing what I'm talking about, and then say, you know what, Bobby, I'd like to move our meeting out 2 weeks. Would that be okay with you? I've never had somebody say, no, that's not okay. Because as long as you keep your commitment, or you can do it another way, let's rethink how we're using our communication tools.
Now, and then Athena just said that's the basic principle of essentialism. All
right, great. Probably minimalism and some other isms, right?
Yeah, a lot of isms. Yes. Thank you. So the other thing I'm curious about is, people. What do you think are some of the people's biggest challenges when it comes to connecting during crazy times? What's stopping them from connecting better, or maybe what's going on with them?
Yeah, great question, Bobby. So every time I work with a client and we set something up, whether it's a one-time or a series, I ask them to forward 3 questions to the people who will be participating. And those are a gold mine, because they then tell me where they're at. And so some of the common ones, in fact, I gave a digital breakfast Monday night, 11 o'clock my time, 8 a.m. Brussels time, for Sasha Wideman and his crew and Fosbury & Sons. And they had some of the same concerns. My team is feeling disconnected because they're not in the same room. Okay, great. Let's address that. I'm not sure where the boundary of being a leader and being a team member is, which I thought was fascinating. I'm like, well, a leader is a team member. So again, these labels, we need to be very aware of how we're defining those labels. There's how do you lead? Whether it's a solo lead, like someone like myself or yourself, Bobby, or how do I lead a team? So those are some of the most common concerns right now of how do I feel involved? I might get the invites, but how do I feel about that? What's the emotional component of actually feeling like we have a connection? Let's take you and I for a minute, Bobby. We have literally known about each other for, I'm thinking about 3+ years.
Okay. Yeah, likely, yeah, sure.
Through LinkedIn. And that's where we kicked it off. And to me, and I told you this last week on our own call, like it just felt a connection right away because it just felt real, and we kind of laundry listed and we're having a little love fest. And so that stuff has already been happening. But what's happened with this compressed time frame is like now that is the primary choice. People aren't used to that being the primary, if not only choice. So instead of like, well, should we meet or shouldn't we meet? It's we feel like we need to meet. How do we emotionally stay connected? So some tactics for that is, and I'm going to give a huge shout out to Terry Carden. She's an association management pro. She shared with me, she did the non-dues-a-palooza for associations who want to make non-dues revenue. And she said that give people, if you're going to schedule a meeting, especially a group meeting, make sure to allow a few minutes before you start for people to come in the room, because that's what we did physically. We need to mimic some physical. So people can get like, hey, Bobby, it's good to see you. You know, how are your kids? And some of the chat. See, as soon as I heard this from her, I'm like, well, of course, why wouldn't we do that? So don't just start at the top of the hour when you start. No, give people the warm up, because that's one of the biggest values for everybody in going to an event. This is the go-to now. So emulate that. Have your thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely encourage live chat. Absolutely. It is for the people who want that bonus of connection of like, oh, Bobby's here, I'm going to chat with him a little bit. You know, don't take it personally and don't let your ego get involved. If they need to exchange and this is their time, let them have it. Plus, from a business standpoint, when I hold like my monthly connecting juice or things, that chat is gold. That tells us what's on people's mind. What do we need to address? How can we keep helping and serving and building our business? And so that's really valuable. And then at the end of the thing, then have the linger, have the happy hour, have the after party, let people participate. Terry told me that at this non-dues-a-palooza where she had hundreds of people show up for it, she had somebody distinctly tell her, hey, I'm an introvert and I loved this format because I felt safe. I didn't have to be stuck in the corner with somebody I didn't want to talk to. I didn't have to be finding the corner where I could be by myself. Like there are different ways to think about the benefits that this kind of communication offers us.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And, you know, I love the idea of just having those conversations with people before they start the call and at the end. Yeah, it's funny. And at the end too, that's probably one where I don't do as much. I certainly focus on let's spend like 3 to 5 minutes talking to each other. On the end, I'm like, okay, gotta go by. Like it's pretty straight up. But
right, it's a
yeah, I think I like the idea of actually having those. Hey, listen, let's okay, you know, I think we're done. We've met our agenda, so yeah, so we're good. But I'm happy to stick around if people want to chit chat. Just
right.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Allow the question and answers. Sasha did that at the digital breakfast. We ran through the time frame that they had laid out, and he said, well, we decided to go longer. Great. People are hungry for connection right now, Bobby. You and I both know that. And what we're hungry for is to, again, feel like if we show up, we are seen, we are valued, we are worth it. And we're really the host, whoever the host is, doesn't matter, sees them. So for example, on my monthly juice events, just like you encouraging people, like get into the chat, tell us what's on your mind, show up, let us know you're here and tell us how we can help you. When I give my monthly juice, it's a lesson in life coaching. I do the whole Brady Bunch, the gallery view, I guess it's called, because
right.
I see people. And then because I am a connector, I am referencing the people. Oh, Bobby, I want you to meet Anne and so forth. And while they may not be able to see each other the same way, that's a tactic I would encourage people to do. If you're leading it, call out, like highlight, love seat, as I call it, from my friend Maribel, like call out people like Bobby, hey, we're going to put Bobby in the love seat for a minute. Bobby just did a great job last week doing X, Y, and Z. You know, he found his first unicorn and, you know, give it up for Bobby. Then allow time in your framework of your meeting, your agenda, whatever it is, to have people give those kudos. One of the most important lessons I learned before I did my first TEDx talk came from a friend of mine, Sarah. She's a bee expert, and she had done one. So I called and said, Sarah, what can you tell me having gone through this thing? And she said, allow time for laughter and applause. I wouldn't have thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I certainly get that in my professional speaking and so forth and workshops, TED is so it's so tight that we don't have the latitude for time. And so when you're having your meetings, whether it's one-on-one, one to few, one to many, schedule in some props time, schedule in a fun activity. One of the best activities, you're going to love this one. One of the most fun activities I've ever done, icebreaker. Again, people don't really like that term. They're like, oh, what's icky? And I have to tell people that I was a 3rd grade Girl Scout. I learned it from Leanna Dasso from the Ron Wilson Center in Salem, Oregon. It's called Who Done It. So before you have a get together, before you have a meeting or a conference or whatever, ask people to submit one thing about themselves that nobody else would know. Something fun.
Right.
I was in the room when Leanna did this for Ron Wilson. I did a 3-part series, leadership series with them. And it was so much fun, Bobby, because what it did is it highlighted everybody in a really positive way. And it immediately created, I think there were like 35 people in that room. All of a sudden, there were 35 new connecting points. Oh, wait a minute. Let's exponentially multiply that. Because just because I know one thing about you, if we're one of the 35, there's 33 other people. Do the math, right? You've got to be proactive about it. So I just thought that was a brilliant idea. There's no ick to it. There's no one, because the people choose what they want to share.
Right.
Not the awkward, like, oh yeah, Bobby, I see your beard has grown long, when you're like, crap, I can't find a trimmer. So those are some ideas.
Although I did find a trimmer, so I'm good now. But I appreciate that. No, that's good. And again, we're talking with Ginger Johnson, human connection expert, about connection during crazy times and strategy and tactical use. And again, you're sharing some great. You're bringing in the juice, which is great. Tell me about these monthly juices that you have. That's is that just like what is that? Tell me what that is.
You're going to eventually be on there too, so just be
I might want to do that myself. I'm thinking I'm thinking about having like kind of a get together with people on a frequent basis. So I want to learn more about this.
Excellent. So my monthly juice came about because, I used to be a radio host before podcasts were around.
Oh, okay.
Had a radio show for 4 years, Beer Radio, and I love the live component. And so as a pro speaker again, I'm really, really, really missing being in the room. Like that is the hardest thing for me. There's
agreed.
No joke to that.
Same.
The dynamic, the energy we get back,
right.
Lives will change. So that's hard.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
And so I thought, well, what can I do to create online community? Never been my jam, never been my desire to be my jam. Guess what? This is what it is. Okay, Johnson, let's shift. So I rolled it out first as a membership. And then I thought, oh, hell, I just want to have anybody here who wants to be here and who wants to connect and who wants to learn. So I lifted the price and now it's growing. People can register at gingerjohnson.com. It's the Connecting Juice. I use the word juice, which I'm open to suggestion. I like it because to me, I don't like takeaway or outcome. That just sounds too sterile and institutionalized. Mm-hmm. Juice. Oh yeah, give me a shot of juice. And so I use that term when I'm speaking, like that's the juice. And I'll know it works because eventually somebody in the audience will pipe up and say something and somebody else who agrees, like, that's the juice. So I know. Right. So that's what that is. Everybody is welcome. It is a complimentary connecting point. I love getting the chat going. I've had some great repeats and some new people each time. So that's what the juice is about.
Okay. That's awesome. And it's funny. I started thinking about doing the exact same thing because as I'm about to launch my new personal branding course, one of the ideas that my team was telling me is like, listen, why don't we create some sort of thing where people can just get on a call and let's talk. And I know some friends are doing that on Instagram, they're doing it with Zoom. Right. I'm like, you know what, I could probably do that. I haven't done that very much. It's not like I don't do them all. I have done them before. It's just that I haven't done any on a consistent basis except for this broadcast. But this broadcast only has 1 or 2 people on it at a time, so it's a little bit different. And again, if anyone out there has questions for Ginger before we leave, I want to make sure you throw them out there. And Athena was here, but other people haven't really been commenting, so I want to make sure we get questions in here and comments. If you like what you're hearing too, you can tag folks, you can like, clap, heart, light bulb. You can also share this on your own pages and get people involved in the conversation, or you can check out the replay afterwards and still ask questions and tag me or Ginger, and that's totally fine to do that. So
I guess somebody should call their business Clap Heart Light Bulb.
Clap Heart Light Bulb. and I'm glad you called the Connection Juice was the connection cactus. Like cactus. Like, oh, you're bringing the cactus. Well, that's prickly. Okay, I'm dry. I don't get it. Okay.
Exactly.
The juice is good. It's a shot.
Well, I would encourage anybody who's watching this, whenever they're watching this, Bobby and I have something stewing on the stove too that putting the power of 2 connections is exponentially valuable. Hey, I want to share one more tactic, if I may.
Please. we're here for.
I'm in my
Bring
role.
on the juice.
Like working at home, I think that's such a misnomer anyway. I'm a word nerd, and I've never really liked that term because it feels like I sell something out of my trench coat. But I've had a home headquarters for a long time.
Semantics are your bag.
I've
noticed. Right?
I'm not sorry. So anyway, one thing I love is written communication. Most people love getting what's called Who Body mail. I learned that from a professor way back when I was in college. Who Body mail is the mail that you want to get. It's something from somebody who you care about or have an attachment to, a connection with. So behind me, I've got a working shelf, of course, and I've got a whole bunch of stationery. I'm a big letter writer as well. Okay. And one thing I absolutely keep on hand at all time are postcards. So there's simple branded postcards. Here's one, Keep Connecting. It's got my brand down here for the business people in the room. There it is. Yeah. And it's very simple. On the back, I've got my return address. Always remember that. I'm using the center line to make sure that I don't fill it all up and to give another message. I have my contact information down here. Super easy. I keep stamps on hand. So powerful. Bobby, I have people come back to me. They send me pictures like, Ginger, this has been on my fridge for years. This has been in my office for years. Lisa Hurley, another fabulous client and friend, economic development in York, Nebraska. She has a couple of them that I've sent her, and they say different things. So keep connecting. I appreciate you. Thank you. What's your why? So for a brand move, because I know you're great at branding, Bobby, the power of mail is through the roof. The Postal Service right now, at least in my country, probably all over the world, I ran into my neighbor. She works for the post office. She said, we're busier than Christmas. Use that system because this is not old school, my friends. This is classic. Written communication is so meaningful. People don't save and print and put an email on their wall. They don't save a text and put it on the fridge. But these things, they last forever.
Yeah, my friend Blake Fleischacker is a big advocate for this, and he runs events where actually people will write in thank you cards, and they'll actually get people to call people live to talk about what their thank you cards are about, and so it's a really powerful cathartic experience to do that. So I think that's certainly a great way to help people, deal with creating greater connection. I mean, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Well, there's a hack to this too. So.
Okay, sure.
I love my printers, Minuteman Press in Medford, give them a big shout out. And what I will do once in a while is I will visit them on a regular basis because it's both my gift and my disease. But I will say, do you have some odds and ends of paper? So the hack here is if you want to save some money in doing this, ask them what kind of odds and ends they have laying around. And chances are good, they're just, we just want to get rid of it. We got half a ream of this or half a box of that or whatever. So you help them by getting rid of what they don't want. And then you can get a screaming deal. And please don't ask for a discount, but you could say, hey, do you have some old stuff that you really want to move? Let me know what that is, and I'll be happy to consider it. So super simple.
I love it. You're bringing on a lot of great nuggets for people to help them out, which is fantastic. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, people want to reach out to you and learn more about who you are and what you do. What's the best place for them to do that, Ginger?
Sure. World headquarters, gingerjohnson.com. Anybody has a better name up their sleeve, I'd love to hear it. I'm definitely wide open. But gingerjohnson.com, GINGERJOHNSON. I'm on Twitter, as you know, Bobby, very active on LinkedIn. It's, of course, where we met. Yeah. And got a YouTube channel. So there's lots of videos on tactics, strategies, techniques. And then I know there's one more. Oh, Instagram. I'm still learning Instagram.
Me too.
And of course, I have a newsletter. So people who want to be in the newsletter community, I give exclusive insight. I reward those people who want that. It's about once a week. There's no flood to this tsunami here. It's a steady nurture of tactics and techniques and insights. So those are the best ones. Oh, and then the book, The Connectivity Canon. Nice. It's even got yellow pages. Look at that, Bobby. Oh, these are permission slips. If you order your own book, you get permission slips. You're going to have to order the book to find out what they're.
Fun. And sorry, the newsletter, is that a LinkedIn newsletter or just your own standard newsletter?
It is an e-newsletter.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And it looks like, hey, someone's got a question. How exciting is that?
Excellent.
It's a deep one too. Okay, here we go. How, if at all, are you incorporating messages about the racial injustices that have been occurring? I assume you both have audiences in the U.S. Yes, we do. And this is an important conversation, and you have the platform to affect change.
Oh, boy. You want to address that first?
What? No, you're the guest.
Okay. Great question. Who's asking this? I can't see who this is.
Athena Panton is asking that.
Thank you, Athena. That is a really important question to ask. It's an important question to ask all the time, too. Just because things have reached a fever pitch, don't forget these questions. So Athena, perfect example. I have a friend and colleague. I'll call her Anne. It's not her real name. She is a realtor. Lots of great realtors all over the world. And she and I were going back and forth. And she said, you know, this what's going on right now is really important to me. And my employer has told me to keep it neutral. And I read that. And I thought, first of all, I was super glad she was willing to share that. She trusts me and she was willing to share that. Second of all, I sent her both a video message in reply to this and an email message in reply to this, Athena. And here's why. If this is part of what you believe is best and right, and you can help promote positive growth, then you incorporate it as it fits for you. However it fits for you. Like, you get to decide. Nobody is in charge of your actions except you. I would encourage everybody to be diplomatically direct, be civil, be kind, be thoughtful. One of the classic connectors tactics is to be POW, positive, objective, and willing. It's actually on my wall over there because I gave that as a big part of the lesson at the Digital Breakfast. So if this matters to you, Athena, and everybody who's listening to this, please find a way to integrate it into your work. Because if you don't, and it's simmering below your surface, you've missed an opportunity. And I don't say that to put pressure on you. You're going to do what you think you need to do. But please, please, please speak up. Find people who can help you learn. Huge shout out to my friend Lawrence Henderson, my brother from another. I'm learning about, he happens to be African American. Like, I don't care. Just like you, Bobby, I don't look at the color of your skin. But if I have a question about something, find people who you can ask a question of, look, what do I need to be aware of as the person who is not the one in the hot seat? Like, tell me what I should be thinking about. Be the student, take it in, learn, support. So there's no silver bullet. This is sticky. This is messy. It's been coming for a long time. It will probably go forever, sadly, in some way, shape, or form. And if this is important to you, Athena, speak up, figure out how it works. Marie Forleo has done a stellar world-class job at addressing this. And if you're interested, look at her, marieforleo.com. She actually totally effed it, and then she owned it because she knew she effed it, and she's working to correct it. So there's a real example you can look at. Bobby, I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, as per my first TEDx talk, I talk about how connection can change the world, because connection, when you create deep connection with people, you create communities. And when you have deep, powerful communities that are aligned around a cause, a vision, or a value, that's when you create the positive change that you want. So I think as connectors, we have an opportunity, a huge opportunity to leverage that connection to, help create positive change.
Right.
The second thing I'll say is that, it's important for us to address the elephants in the room. So everyone's talking about COVID, everyone's talking about the racial injustice that are going on in the protests. I think it's important to acknowledge that, to not acknowledge it.
Right.
Will speak to your values, because they'll say, well, you don't care, you're not interested. No, I care about racial justice. I care about people struggling during COVID. So I think it's important to address that. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'll say is that there are always ways to communicate, even if a company says you can't, to be neutral. What does that even mean? Like, I mean, first off, that would turn me off, because it's saying that every company should have values. Every leader has values. What are the values you stand for? If your value in your company page says we value diversity, then you should be talking about this.
Yes.
If your company values say we value humanity, then you should be talking about this. If your company manifesto says, give me anything, we value trust, we value hard work, we value community. All of those, every single one is ready to share something. Now, there are ways to do it, as you said, diplomatically, so that you don't get in trouble. But when you just talk about your values, like my value is empathy. That if I just say I empathize with the struggle of people going through COVID and racial injustice, and my heart goes out to them, no one's going to fault you for that. And if they do, you know what? You're working for the wrong company.
Yes, that's exactly what I told my friend.
And the other thing I'll say is that as a person of color, I'm far more engaged in diversity and racial injustices and prejudices and bigotry in the last 3 years than I have been in the last 20, for various reasons. And I never thought I'd be. I'm talking about LGBTQ. I'm talking about women. I'm talking about trans. I'm talking about trans people. I'm talking about women who want to wear niqabs. I'm talking about Black people. I'm talking about Muslim people. I'm talking about brown people. I'm talking about everybody now, because I'm feeling that it's important for me to leverage my voice, leverage my influence as much as I can. But at the same time, I also understand that people are overwhelmed, and I'm never going to fault someone for not, or shame someone for not speaking up.
Right.
I will do everything I can to encourage them to speak up, because I think it's more important for particularly allies to speak up and people of influence to speak up. But I'm not going to shame them, because we don't know what people are going through. Even if they're rich and wealthy, we don't know what they're going through, and so I don't want to actually do it that way. I think connection is the best way to bridge connection, bridge divide, bridge understanding, to bridge the divide that we have. And so for me, that's how we do it. I definitely will speak to it, and I did a video on this a couple weeks ago, and I actually I apologized, because it's been a long time since I had done one, and I'll do another one again, because I think this is such an important piece to talk about. So that's generally my take on things. I am using my platforms. Some platforms, I choose to do it less, like LinkedIn. I've never really been political in any sort of way, but when this first came out, it was the first time I actually posted something about it, and and that's fine. There's always a time for a first time to do stuff. I mostly leverage Twitter and Instagram and Facebook for those types of things, but I think that, again, if you stand for values, you stand for connection, you stand to make the world a better place, how can you not say something?
Right. Powerful question. We could talk about this for hours.
I know, right? I'm getting all pumped up here.
Yeah. You can figure out ways to make sure it's subtly ever present in how you talk about.
Get feedback from somebody. Like, ask them, what do you think? Hey, here's what I want to post. What do you think of it? Let's send it to me. I'll give you my take on it. But just get some feedback from somebody, and that way you'll feel more comfortable posting that kind of stuff. That's a great question. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's going to take us to the end of our session. But thanks, everyone. If anyone has questions afterwards, you can certainly please comment below. Ginger, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. And for those of us who are actually on the call, again, thanks for coming by. You can check out the replay. You can tag people later. You can join us again. Next week, just an FYI, I'm likely taking a break because it's Canada Day weekend, and then it's also July 4th, so maybe everyone's not working, which is totally cool. And I'll be transitioning with the kids, and then I'll probably announce when my new show will start in July. So in the meantime, anyone's up for it, I'm doing a webinar tomorrow at 12 o'clock on LinkedIn engagement. You can check it out on my feed on LinkedIn to get the details on that. And Ginger, thank you so much for your time. I love your message. I love the juice you bring. I love everything that you're doing, and we connect really well. So thanks for your insights, and thanks for coming by.
Absolutely, Bobby. The feeling is mutual. It's a good co-vibe, not the COVID. Keep connecting.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing there. You're really good at that kind of stuff. That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I love it.
Language is a connection. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks everybody for being here. We'll talk again soon, eh?
All right, guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.